The people at Dichi High watch a news report on college admissions and the recent increase of acceptance based on student records. As Teacher Son and Cha walk by the empty college advisory department, Teacher Son explains that the team went on a sales trip, and Teacher Cha wonders how Sung Soon is able to get universities to share their admissions information. Cut to Sung Soon and her two-method plan. She shows the team a couple of student records, but before she can explain, Yeon-woo recognizes the students despite the redacted pictures. He recites specific details about the students as well as his own analysis and impresses everyone. When the cafe pager buzzes, Sung Soon grabs it, but Hanyul places her hand on top of hers and offers to get the drinks. Having noticed Hanul constantly staring at Sung Soon, Myung-soo asks if something happened between them, but Sung Soon denies it. However, when Hanyul returns with the drinks, she carefully places Sung Soon's cup on a napkin, which only supports Myung-soo's speculations. Yeon-woo asks Sung Soon how the student records will help since colleges don't offer specific evaluations of students. Her plan is to ask the admissions officer to compare the records, and hopefully, following the trail of questions will get them some pertinent information. As for the second method, Sung Soon takes out her phone and tells the others that it's the fastest option but requires luck. Right then, she receives a call from Ata, and after her call, Sung Soon says with a smile that everything is set in place. Principal Byun calls Sung Soon, and she tells him that she's friends with the head admissions officer of Hankuk University, who's also the one scheduled to meet them today. Principal Byun loudly praises Sung Soon for all the other teachers to hear, but his blatant display of adulation ruffles some feathers among the staff. Once the principal leaves, a teacher calls Sung Soon's methods beneath their status, believing that the brats have to find their own way into college, but his callous remarks are met with incredulous stares from the others, even by Teacher Song. The rude teacher continues watching his variety show until Teacher Moon drops a pointed remark, "Some of us are dying from busyness, while some are dying from idleness." After witnessing Teacher Moon silence the rude teacher with a single comment, Teacher Song and Ha quietly exit the office and marvel at Teacher Moon's authoritative power. They agree with each other that Teacher Moon is clearly on the fast track for promotions. Sung Soon cheerily tells the others about her close relationship with the head admissions officer, a cool, middle-aged man, but when they arrive at their meeting, they find a cold-faced woman sitting there instead. She explains to the group that she'll answer their questions since she knows about their school. Sung Soon and the others quickly ask about the admissions process at the university, but the admissions officer simply says that she's not at liberty to share the university's evaluation standards. While the officer dodges all their questions, Hanyul finds the hostile atmosphere odd, especially when universities should be more cooperative with high schools. Hanyul interrupts the meeting, asking for a short break so that her side can change the pace, but with only 10 minutes left, prospects look grim. Frustrated with the lack of progress, Sung Soon takes a sip of coffee but spills on her blouse. As Hanyul leaves to grab tissues, Yeon-woo packs up his things since there's no hope. To Myung-soo's surprise, both Yeon-woo and Sung Soon recognize the admissions officer. In the bathroom, Hanyul overhears the admissions officer talking with a colleague about the time she worked as a short-term teacher at Dichi High. She stayed in the position for over 3 years on the promise for a permanent position, but in the end, she was betrayed. Back in the meeting room, Myung-soo sighs over the news and asks how they recognized her. Yeon-woo explains that they took the permanent teacher exam together 4 years ago. While many of the teachers assumed that the admissions officer would be hired, it was actually Yeon-woo who got the position, even though it was his first year as a short-term teacher. Having learned the admission officer's past, Hanyul stares at her in a new light, and her image overlaps with the memory of Ji-sun's abrupt departure. As Ji-sun left the school, Hanyul looked for her, but was a moment too late. After hearing Yeon-woo's explanation, Myung-soo still doesn't understand why the admissions officer is taking it out on them when the higher-ups are the ones to blame. Sung Soon tells him that it's because they didn't remember her, and to that, Myung-soo has nothing to say. A crisis hits Dichi High as teachers fend off worried students and angry phone calls. Someone complained about a problem from last year's final exam. The principal asks the teachers for an explanation, and Teacher Moon tells him that one of the questions technically had 2 correct answers. As a result, they'll need to regrade, which will change student rankings. The principal angrily asks who's behind all this trouble, and it turns out to be the workings of a private academy and the father of student Gu Jae-hyun. Once the grades are fixed, Jae-hyun's level will move up, and it's clear from the father's attitude that he holds the school in contempt. The teachers leave the meeting with a heavy heart since revising the grades will mean some of the top students will fall down a level. If that's the case, then their only hope will be record-based admissions. With the school thrown into utter chaos, Teacher Son texts Sung Soon about the worrying state of events and urges her to come back with good news. The meeting resumes, but unsurprisingly, no twist occurs. The admissions officer remains aloof, and when time ends, Sung Soon hands her some informational booklets to share with the other admissions officers. She takes them reluctantly and leaves the group without even a proper goodbye. In order to avoid the admissions officer on their way out, the college advisory team takes the stairs, except for Hanyul. She joins the admissions officer in the elevator and asks if she knows them. The admissions officer admits to recognizing the others besides her, and Hanyul tells her that she's a short-term teacher. The admissions officer says that she doesn't have any hard feelings toward Hanyul, and since it's just the two of them, she shares a little more insight. The problem lies in the structure of the school, not the students. Hanyul asks how they can fix these issues, but the admissions officer flatly tells her that these problems require years of work to mend. Though informative, Hanyul wonders what they'll tell the students, but the officer's advice is demoralizing. They should have gone to a good school. On her way home, Sun soon stops by a convenience store for some ramayun and beer. After her quick meal, she plays a claw machine, feeding it bills after bills, until she finally wins a prize. She stumbles home tipsy and showers her son in kisses while her husband reprimands her for drinking again. Sun soon proudly gifts her son the prize she won, but he deflates at the sight of the knockoff Pikachu. Hearing that she spent roughly $50 on the doll, her husband complains under his breath and tells her to quit the college advisory department since it causes her so much stress. During breakfast, Hanyul mulls over the admissions officer's words when Mom hands her a new outfit to wear. Hanyul complains about her old-fashioned sense, but Mom wants her to make a good impression on the higher-ups. She explains that a family friend's daughter is also a short-term teacher, and when she recently went to a matchmaking service, her occupation was unranked, aka undesirable. Recalling recent events, Hanyul agrees to wear the clothes. At school, Principal Byun yells at Sung Soon for not keeping her promise to bring back results. Teacher Yoon walks past the department and motions for the other college advisors to come out. She gives Yeon Woo and Myung-soo a few words of encouragement, and does the same for Sung Soon once the principal's rant is over. However, Sung Soon looks unfazed by the scolding and takes out the earplugs she was wearing the whole time. Teacher Yoon comments on how hardworking Sung Soon is, and Yeon Woo points out another hard worker, Hwon. They watch Hwon mop the floor, a task usually reserved for students, and clearly see the intention behind his overeager actions. Despite how he may look to others, Hwon is thrilled when the principal notices him mopping and continues his task with renewed vigor. Sung Soon walks up to Hwon on her way to the department heads meeting and asks why he is cleaning. She jokingly calls it voluntary servitude before gently reminding Hwon that he belongs in the classroom, not in the halls with a mop. As they talk, Hanyul enters the school, and Hwon stares at her with a concerned look. The department heads meeting is another rehashing of the same problems as the principal asks what they'll do about the upcoming college admissions conference. Sung Soon suggests leaving out Hankook University from the presentation, but Teacher Song mocks her idea since that's the top college in the nation. Instead, he offers a different solution. Meanwhile, Hanyul walks into the office and her outfit immediately draws attention from the others for being a classic teacher look. When another teacher from the third year's department mentions the advisor's recent failed meeting with the admissions officer, Hanyul remembers the critiques from that day and asks the others for data regarding student record applications. While the department has the students' files, they don't have letters of recommendation since those are confidential. Myung-soo offers to tell Hanyul who wrote letters for successful applicants if she explains what she's doing first, but Yeon-woo ruins his plans and tells Hanyul that it's Teacher Yoon. Though the bell rang for class, the department heads are still in their meeting, arguing over Teacher Song's proposal. He wants to reinstate the advanced class to help their top students, but Sung Soon vehemently opposes the idea since it's blatant discrimination. Unfortunately, many of the other teachers are in favor of the idea, including Teacher Moon, so the principal leaves the decision up to a vote. At lunch, Teacher Ha wonders how they'll revive a band class, and Teacher Han points out the fact that everyone will try to avoid taking charge. Teacher Song thinks that the class could actually be an opportunity for a teacher to prove their worth, and his words catch Hwon's interest. As they return to their office, Hwon approaches Teacher Song to ask about the advanced class, but Teacher Song already has someone else in mind. Teacher Yoon finds Hanyul waiting outside her office and invites her in to give her the letters of recommendation. She correctly guesses what the admissions officer must have told Hanyul and is sympathetic to her predicament. It's a bit awkward for a teacher to criticize a fellow teacher. After hearing Hanyul's name, Teacher Yoon hands her a note from Ji-sun. It's a short message taken from a poem, and it reads, "If you look with hatred, every grass is a weed. If you look with kindness, every person is a flower." Before Ji-sun left, she asked Teacher Yoon to be chat buddies with Hanyul, and she tells the new teacher to stop by any time. Hanyul looks down at the note and a single tear falls down her cheek. Hwon thinks back to what Teacher Song told him when he receives a call from the Information Systems Department. Apparently, Teacher Moon asked them for Hwon's IP address, but since it's illegal to disclose such information, they refused. Worried about Hwon, the other teacher asks if something happened, but Hwon says that it's alright. Hanyul and Teacher Yoon return to the college advisory department to look over documents together, but stop in their tracks when they hear Myung-soo complain about the advanced class. Teacher Yoon explains the details to Hanyul and advises her to stay out of this power struggle. With the entire third year's department in tow, Teacher Song saunters into the college advisory department to tell them who they want in charge. He calls out to Hanyul, offering her the opportunity, but before she has to answer, the bell saves her. Hanyul promises to think it over, and the confrontation ends for today. Afterwards, Teacher Ha asks why he chose Hanyul, and Teacher Song looks towards Teacher Moon's direction before answering. She's Teacher Moon's niece. He thinks this is the perfect chance for him to show his loyalty to Teacher Moon, but whether or not Hanyul takes the chance is up to her. Before she leaves, Teacher Yoon pats Hanyul on the back and tells her not to stress over it too much since teachers only need to think about the students first. Despite her words, Hanyul remains conflicted over what to do, so Sun Soon tells the other to go home as she steps out to take a break. Teacher Moon gets ready to leave when he receives a call from Information Systems, telling him that he can't have Hwon's information. He then gets a call from the vice principal and opens his messages to see a request to investigate hiring corruption at D High School. It's obviously about their school, but luckily for Teacher Moon, the Office of Education talked it over and let this one slide. Before Teacher Song leaves, Hwon stops him and asks for the advanced class position again. He thinks the class will be too difficult for a new teacher, but Teacher Song tells him that he can have it only if Hanyul rejects the offer. On their way out, the new short-term teachers talk about Hwon's desperate attempts to earn points with the advanced class, and Yi Boon overhears them gossiping in the halls. She marches to the college advisory department where only Hanyul remains and tells her to take the class. Outside, Sun Soon arrives from her coffee break and stands quietly by the door. Yi Boon tells Hanyul that this is a good opportunity for her, and if she doesn't take it, Hwon will. She asks if Hanyul is hesitating because of the students or her department, and Hanyul truthfully answers that both are on her mind. However, Hanyul has decided to think about herself first, and staring at a class photo with Youngha, she confesses that she wants to succeed. As Hwon leaves school, Teacher Moon catches the elevator with him. Both of them look forward when Teacher Moon tells Hwon to come talk to him directly if he has any problems. His remark leaves Hwon speechless, and he clenches his fist while watching Teacher Moon leave. Hanyul packs up her things to leave, placing Ji-sun's note in a drawer, but outside the office, she finds Sun Soon waiting for her. Sun Soon tells her to take the advanced class, and says that no one can criticize her decision to think of her future. She advises Hanyul not to succumb to voluntary servitude since a teacher who does things to be acknowledged by others is no good as a teacher. Sun Soon tells her again to take the class, and Hanyul finally agrees to do it. Myung-soo slips into an office to eavesdrop on Teacher Song's meeting. They brainstorm names for the new class, but suggestions like the Sky class and Dichi leaders are continuously shut down until one of the teachers shares her idea. Cut to a poster introducing the brand new Icarus Club, now accepting members. Priority goes to the 20 applicants with the highest grades, and the students can tell that this elite club is for top performers and will beef up their student records. Ji and Ura, a student from Hanyul's homeroom class, takes in the notice seriously while her classmate Jae Hyun doesn't seem to be too concerned. Teacher Son commends the third year's department for working around the Office of Education's ban on advanced classes by advertising it as a club. Its members will have access to special after-school classes and counseling sessions with the college advisory department. Yi An-woo is surprised to see the Creative Experience Department listed on the Icarus Club proposal. Their job is to review student records in regards to club activities. Myung-soo figures that Teacher Han, the head of Creative Experience and the teacher who named the club, must have wanted to butt in with the excuse of reviewing records. Principal Byun tries to talk Sun Soon into accepting the advanced class. He brings up the fact that the college advisory department wasn't able to produce desirable results, and though it looks like Sun Soon has something to say about that, she decides against it. Hanyul has a great time chatting with Teacher Yoon, who flips through Ura and Jae Hyun's student records. Hanyul's teased for worrying about the other advisors and shyly admits to it, agreeing that they're charming but have strong personalities. The conversation takes a more serious turn when the topic of the advanced class comes up. If Hanyul takes on the role, students and parents will give her a hard time, but she'll also be caught in the power struggle between the two departments. Additionally, now that the Creative Experience Department is included, they'll be overimposing in regards to the student records. Teacher Ha recounts his earlier run-in with Hanyul while on a stroll with Teacher Song and Hwon. Though she's made up her mind regarding the position, she said that she'll announce her decision at tomorrow's meeting. They find it odd that Hanyul didn't just tell him, but they spot Sun Soon approaching and crouch by the bushes to eavesdrop. Teacher Son believes the advanced classes are needed to help their top students get into good schools, which Teacher Song agrees with from behind the bushes. The college advisory department will take credit for any successful Icarus students, so he urges Sun Soon to just think of the results and bonuses she'll get. Teacher Cha chimes in to defend their school. Other schools treat their top students with special care too. Sun Soon doesn't reveal whether or not Hanyul is taking the position, to the dismay of the third-year teachers who accidentally reveal their position by dropping a soda can. Ura paces in front of the third year's office with an Icarus application in hand, but decides against submitting it as she worries about a lower mark she'd received. She's excited to see Hanyul in the hallway, so they sit down to talk, and Ura gets reassurance that she's doing well enough to apply. She opens up to Hanyul about her family's financial situation. She's aiming for med school because studying something specialized will increase her chances of landing a permanent job. She worries about the number of short-term jobs out there, which Hanyul relates to more than Ura realizes. Hanyul chuckles to hear a high schooler lamenting about how tough life is. She gives her words of encouragement, and Ura beams with happiness that Hanyul remembers her name. Hanyul stays late to review the student records and letter of recommendation written by teacher Yoon, who voices over that in fear of their kids falling behind in school, parents send them to academies. We see Jae-hyun studying at one of these, while Ura has to study on the side at her part-time job. When she heads home after work, Ura spots a bunch of her schoolmates leaving the prep school, and watches as Jae-hyun gets into an expensive car. His dad lectures him endlessly about school and the CSAT while he stares longingly out the window. Teacher Yoon had explained during her chat with Hanyul that as teachers, they should pay special attention to those whose grades fall because they can't afford to attend prep schools. She writes her recommendation letters explaining their circumstances to help these students out. It's difficult for a teacher to criticize their fellow colleagues, so Hanyul sighs as she flips through the records late into the night and contemplates what to do. Before the meeting the next morning, Sung-soon shares that her contact at Hankook University looked into the records of the student who got accepted. That student barely made it in due to the varying opinions of the admissions officers, but was accepted because the interview and recommendation letter were great. This is the final push Hanyul needed to decide to speak up, insisting that it's important that she talks to the team before the meeting. She dives right into her findings. The accepted student didn't have better specs than other applicants. In fact, his math grades dropped at one point. It was only through teacher Yoon's letter that the reason behind the lower mark was explained. Their school's exam structure favors students who study the materials in advance, aka those who attend prep schools, but this student had always been practicing self-directed studying. Her detailed letter of recommendation proved helpful as the admissions officers took her words into consideration when evaluating him. Sung-soon understands that she's trying to say that the problem lies in their school system. Yeonwoo doesn't agree with how teacher Yoon's recommendation letter was written, and Sung-soon asks why Hanyul brought this up before the meeting. Hanyul replies that it's a difficult truth that had to be told, but nobody was willing to speak up. She thinks that they should try all other options before proceeding with the advanced class, so that all kinds of students can get into good schools. She specifically names Ura, who'd entered the office to look for Hanyul and has been listening in on their meeting. She overhears her family's circumstances being shared with the other advisors and leaves upset. The advisors are all lost in their own thoughts, Hanyul's words weighing heavily on their minds. She thinks to herself that one of them is going to have to make a conscientious confession to tell the truth to all the teachers. Myung-soo thanks Hanyul for sharing her thoughts, knowing she did it to look out for the team. Sung-soon decides to speak to the principal despite Yeonwoo's warning that nothing good will come out of bringing this up. Hanyul narrates that the fundamental issue has to be tackled in order to evoke change, though telling the truth is difficult. Principal Byun points out that with the amount of students a teacher has, personal situations are often overlooked so the teachers can't be blamed. He's not exactly happy about this being brought up, but he postpones the meeting and asks for the attendance of all teachers. Sung-soon is given the stage to discuss the record-based applications and is met with many sarcastic remarks from the crowd of teachers. She keeps her cool and lays it out plain and simple. The reason why so many Dichi students are rejected by Hankook University is because of the school system and teachers. Teacher Moon asks for proof, which the college advisory department has prepared and hands out. One of the teachers is particularly displeased, berating Sung-soon for criticizing her colleagues. She emphasizes that she isn't criticizing, just asking everyone to tackle the problem together. Sung-soon gets emotional as she asks for the teachers to view each student as individuals and consider their situations when writing their recommendations. She also urges them to think about the ones who don't attend prep schools when creating exam questions. Out of frustration, she silences the teachers, making dismissive comments with an outburst, "They're all our kids." Teacher Han and Teacher Song take over and a voting takes place regarding the proposed benefits that the Icarus students will get. Each vote passes with a majority of teachers in favor of the perks. The only thing left to do is to choose the teacher. All eyes fall on Hanyul as she accepts the position, though she has a favor to ask. She wants the third years in college advisory department's cooperation to ensure no outside pressure affects how she runs the club. She also wants to be trusted to handle the student records as the teacher in charge without interference, and asks for the creative experience department's help. Yi-boon cutely claps in support of Hanyul's brave requests, and Teacher Cha muses that this is how it should be done. The teachers can't oppose when confronted so publicly, and even the new short-term teachers agree that Hanyul's got guts. Teacher Moon stops Hanyul in the hall to wish her luck and promises to tell her how to become a permanent teacher if she does well. Myung-soo does an impression of Sung-soon's "There Are Kids," and the mood is immediately brightened in the office. He compliments Hanyul for doing great and making him proud. They decide to grant Hanyul a wish, and she requests to have a meal with the team. Hanyul is delighted to be eating with the others, and doesn't bother hiding it. Myung-soo realizes that this is their first time eating together. The advisors take turns taking care of Hanyul. Myung-soo offers soup, Yeonwoo casually puts meat on her plate, and Sung-soon pours her a shot of soju. It suddenly starts to pour, and the team looks out at the rain together. Sung soon comments, "They say you'll live long if you're cursed at a lot," to which Yeonwoo replies that they'll all live for 5,000 years then. Haenyul asks if she has any regrets about today, and Sung soon confidently says that she doesn't. Hwon walks home without an umbrella, highlights from teaching at Dichi running through his mind. When he was with the college advisory department, they always celebrated their successes together and he seemed so genuinely happy. In the end, he can't stop thinking about Haenyul being nominated for the Icarus position. Drenched and dazed, he crosses the road and is almost hit by a car. Hwon's bottled emotions finally explode, and he takes his frustrations out on the driver. A friend texts him to ask if he's interested in going on a blind date with a pretty girl who likes teachers. He responds with, "I'm not a real teacher," which his friend dismisses as him being disinterested, not knowing how true those words really are. The next day, the students scramble to check the Icarus members list. Jae-hyun and Ura both make it, and the latter isn't exactly excited to hear that Haenyul's in charge of the club. A few of the girls who didn't make the cut head to the admin office to complain. Teacher Son has to break it to Yeonwoo that Icarus students get first dibs on his additional after-school class spots. It's an order from the principal, so they can't argue against it. Teacher Son asks Yeonwoo to help their department out, since they saved Haenyul's after-school class last time. Yeonwoo is approached by the students who are here to complain about their spots being taken by the Icarus kids. One of the girls starts to cry that she's about to lose everything, and nobody really knows how to handle the tears. Sung soon shoos the girls away and sends them to the third year's department to complain, since they're the ones who made the decision. There's no need for their department to take the blame for other teachers, after all. Teacher G from Academic Affairs sends out a mass email to remind teachers that midterm questions are due next week. He types with gusto to request all teachers to check their questions and ensure no errors are made this time. Haenyul chases after Yeonwoo later to apologize about the situation with the Icarus kids taking priority. He sternly tells her that it's not something she should be sorry for, and that she doesn't need to take responsibility for everything. Yi-boon calls Haenyul over to her desk and secretively whisks her away to an empty meeting room. She wants to discuss the Korean midterm. She and Haenyul will co-write the first part of the exam, and Teacher Ha will collaborate with Ji-won for the second part. Teacher Ha already submitted his questions, which Yi-boon took a look at. She hands Haenyul a textbook that Teacher Ha created for an after-school class that only Icarus students are part of. She's scandalized to discover that his midterm questions are based off of what he teaches this class. Yi-boon is afraid that this will get the two of them in trouble too, and Haenyul doesn't understand why he can't just make questions that are based off content that's taught to everybody. Yi-boon explains that it's all for the money. He wants his after-school classes to be popular so that he can be paid for his extra work. They get paid by the hour for after-school programs. Haenyul wants to confront him or report it to the higher UPS, but Yi-boon shuts those ideas down. She says that this is a problem that Hwon will have to deal with. They can't touch each other's questions. The principal is also the last person you'd escalate an issue to at school. Yi-boon says the only thing they can do is stay out of it, and though it's tragic, Hwon just had terrible luck for getting a bad partner. Haenyul later observes Hwon's interactions with his students from the hallway, taking notice of him for the first time. He seems to be a well-respected teacher whom his students love, and he's more than happy to help them out. Vice Principal Lee approaches Teacher Moon with the open class evaluations and comments that Hwon is constantly improving, favoring him for the permanent position. Teacher Moon searches the forum for the Dichi corruption post, but it no longer exists. Haenyul can't sit back and do nothing now that she knows about the situation, so she approaches Teacher Ha to discuss the midterms. She tries to tactfully ask him to adjust his questions, suggesting that he made the exam easier for Icarus members. Teacher Ha doesn't admit to it, but says that even if it were true, it'd be good for her since the college advisory department would get the credit. Yeonwoo happens to pass by and rushes over with a fake emergency. Myung-soo got hurt, to interrupt the conversation. Outside, Teacher Moon witnesses Yeonwoo lecturing Haenyul. If you confront everyone like that, it'll only make the problem bigger. She has no right to interfere with Hwon and Teacher Ha's business. Haenyul argues that if she doesn't speak up, then Hwon will take the fall. Does Yeonwoo still expect her not to do anything? She's disappointed by his answer, but he just doesn't want her to get criticized by others again. To her disbelief, he says that school's not the same as when she was a student. She spots Hwon and runs inside to speak to him, but is followed by Yeonwoo. As they continue to fight about Hwon, he appears at the top of the stairs and has evidently overheard as he asks, "Why would I take the bullet?" Hwon overhears Haenyul and Yeonwoo arguing about him taking the fall, so he asks them what they mean. As Yeonwoo leaves frustrated, Haenyul mentions Teacher Ha's test questions to Hwon, but to her shock, he dismisses her concerns. When Haenyul calls him again, he replies, "Know your place, teacher." Once the school day ends, Teacher Moon drives home and remembers Hwon's past, including his time as a student. He then recalls the argument he witnessed between Haenyul and Yeonwoo, and he suddenly turns his car around. Meanwhile, Haenyul walks home, still conflicted over what to do, and starts writing a text to Hwon. However, in the end, she doesn't send it. Right then, a call from mom arrives and sends Hanyul running back home, where she finds teacher Moon having dinner with her parents. Hanyul sits there awkwardly while her parents ask about her work life, so she excuses herself from the table to go buy more drinks. Once Hanyul gets up, mom asks her brother about the new permanent position opening up this year, but he tells them that a 6th-year short-term teacher is also up for the position. As Hanyul returns home with the drinks, she spots teacher Moon waiting for her outside. Offering her some advice, teacher Moon tells Hanyul that to become a permanent teacher, private schools look for a specific quality besides the regular credentials. Hwon leaves the office last, and on his way out, he runs into Yeonwoo at the elevators. They stand awkwardly next to each other until Yeonwoo breaks the silence, asking Hwon about his earlier conversation with Hanyul. Hwon merely says that it went well in an attempt to end the chit-chat, but Yeonwoo continues talking. He asks Hwon why he's always anxious and treating his colleagues as competitors, but Yeonwoo doesn't expect an answer as he exits the elevator. To his surprise, Hwon answers his questions and admits to being lame. However, he asks if Yeonwoo was any different, and we see that 4 years ago, Hwon was there, too, when Yeonwoo got promoted over the more experienced short-term teacher. Hanyul takes a detour and thinks about teacher Moon's advice: private schools want to hire people who'll blend in with the organization. He told her that people see zealous new recruits as nuisances and asked if she wanted to risk her neck for something like this. He then said that the forum poster was no different, it's a lack of patience. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. She asked if he knew who wrote the post, and teacher Moon shared his speculations about Hwon. As Hanyul mulls over this news, she thinks to herself that the law of 2-6-2 dictate that in a group of 10, 2 people will like her, 6 will feel indifferent, and last 2 will dislike her. At school, Hanyul shreds teacher Ha's exam questions, ultimately deciding not to tell Hwon about the issue. She can't find it in her heart to help someone who hates her, and in voiceover, she calls herself inadequately kind. In the Icarus study hall, Ura diligently works while her friend leaves early since it's Saturday. Before she goes, Ura asks her friend to take an extra outside class with her since she needs to get good grades to compensate for her lacking student record, but her friend declines the offer since she already has a new tutor. Jae-hyun's friends in the Icarus Club talk about his recent volunteer work as an interpreter at a hospital, and Ura sighs over the contrast between them. As she returns to her seat, she notices his exam prep booklet from his cram school, and after everyone goes home, she sneaks back into the room. Ura sits at Jae-hyun's desk and flips through the exam booklet, which contains detailed information about their teacher's preferences for test questions. She's both thoroughly impressed and a bit disheartened, but this only fuels her further to snap pictures of the guide. Later that evening, Jae-hyun returns to his desk and notices something off. With midterms coming up, the school is bustling with exam preparations as barricades are placed in the offices to keep students out. Myung-soo complains about the biology questions since he has to draw all the pictures for the test, but Yeonwoo counters with the fact that Korean teachers have to submit 10 pages worth of questions. Sung-soon steps out of the office to meet another teacher and sees the vice principal meeting with teachers Moon, Song, and Ha. She watches them so intently that she doesn't even notice Hwon walk up to her and say hi. They enter the office together and ask the female third-year's teacher what's happening. She tells them about the corruption rumor someone posted online and voices her disdain towards the poster. Sung-soon listens silently, but her eyes are glued on Hwon, who's so lost in his own thoughts that he fails to hear teacher Ha call him. Hanyul receives a text from Jae-hyun's father when Yi-boon drops by the college advisory department to pick her up for their meeting. She asks how the issue with teacher Ha's questions went, and Hanyul tells her that she plans on leaving it alone. Yi-boon praises her decision while Yeonwoo listens to their conversation from his desk, looking as if he wants to say something to Hanyul. The third year's Korean teachers meet to discuss the upcoming exam, and Sung-soon joins them to help review their questions. She offers to submit a few questions as well, but the others refuse since she mostly teaches first years. They divide up the rest of the work, and based off seniority, they put Hanyul in charge of editing the exam. Seems backwards to me, but whatever. Teacher Ha asks the group how his questions are since he submitted them early, but Yi-boon just clears her throat and avoids making eye contact. Sung-soon catches on to the odd behavior and pulls Yi-boon aside after the meeting to ask if something is wrong with the exam questions. Yi-boon denies it and scurries away before Sung-soon pries too deeply. Hwon coughs at his desk while looking over teacher Ha's questions, but try as he might to ignore them, Hanyul's words keep bothering him. He approaches teacher Ha to ask him directly, but teacher Ha changes the subject and tasks Hwon with inputting his student evaluations. Hwon tries again to talk about the exam questions, but teacher Song interrupts and takes teacher Ha away. Sung-soon confides with her usual group of teachers over the third year's exam questions, asking if it would be considered overboard if she supervised them. Teacher Son immediately calls it overboard, and both he and teacher Cha think that she'll be cursed if she intervenes. Clearly not the response she wanted, Sung-soon leaves with a scowl on her face. Heh. Looking pale, Hwon drops by academic affairs to ask for a day off tomorrow to visit a doctor, but teacher Shim responds unfavorably to his request. If he must leave, she suggests that he take a half day during the afternoon to avoid the other teachers noticing. Returning to his desk, Hwon runs into the principal and vice principal in the hallways right outside of Haenyul's classroom. They overhear Haenyul interacting jovially with her class, and the administrators admire Haenyul's improvement. Hwon's already glum face darkens after hearing their compliments. In class, Haenyul tells her students that she hopes the future will be fairer for them, but under her breath, Ura whispers, hypocrite. No one seems to notice except for Jae-hyun, who turns to stare at her. Haenyul offers to answer exam questions after class, but Ura chases after Yeonwoo in the hall to ask him instead. When Haenyul enters the office with a few students, she finds Ura there with Yeonwoo, which instantly sours the mood. Sung-soon asks Ura why she didn't go to Haenyul for help and lightly reprimands her for being rude to her teacher. All the students leave the office, feeling the tension in the air, and once they're gone, Sung-soon asks if Haenyul did something to upset Ura. She advises Haenyul to maintain control over her class or it'll be difficult for her to teach. A teacher drops off a form to Haenyul from a student, and she sees Jae-hyun walk by the office. Before she can fully process the information, Myung-soo invites everyone to go eat lunch. They're eating later for Haenyul now, that's so sweet. In the cafeteria, Teacher Han complains to Teacher Song about a self-student record, which the advisory team overhears. Yeonwoo explains to Haenyul that it's a student record written by prep schools that teachers are asked to copy verbatim. Teacher Yoon asks who would be so impolite to do such a thing, and Haenyul tells her that it's Jae-hyun. By now, all the teachers know that Jae-hyun's father was the one who caused the ruckus over the exam problem, and Myung-soo laments Haenyul's predicament since she's saddled with two troublesome students. Hwon passes by Teacher Ha's evening class, and with a determined look, he waits outside for his curriculum partner to finally have their talk. Meanwhile, the vice principal leads the exam training meeting for the new teachers, but Haenyul can only think back to Sung-soon's advice about keeping her class in check. In their office, Teacher Ha wonders if Hwon found an error with his exam questions, but Hwon says that it's something else. He cautiously points out the possibility of a different kind of problem, to which Teacher Ha asks for clarification. On her way home, Haenyul stumbles across Yeonwoo eating at a food stall, and though she tries to sneak away without him noticing, he calls her out for ignoring him. She swivels around and plasters on a smile, but as she turns to leave, Yeonwoo invites her to join him. Haenyul asks why he's buying her food, and Yeonwoo apologizes for earlier since he forgot Ura was in her class. He also explains how he wasn't trying to belittle her concerning the exam situation, but before he can finish, Haenyul orders more food. Yeonwoo tells Haenyul that it'll be difficult for Hwon to bring up the matter with Teacher Ha, especially since Teacher Ha is the type to be prideful about his exam questions. Since this is not just about the exam but a power struggle, Yeonwoo says that Hwon is at a disadvantage because of his lower status. In between his explanation, Yeonwoo notices that Haenyul ordered 2 extra dishes. As Yeonwoo predicted, Hwon's confrontation with Teacher Ha ends badly. Teacher Ha takes offense to Hwon's suggestion to change his questions and barks at him to present valid evidence before making unreasonable demands. In a petty display of power, Teacher Ha orders Hwon to organize his files before going home. While Haenyul edits the midterm, she worries about what Yeonwoo told her, and at school, Hwon works late into the night despite his illness. With midterms approaching quickly, teachers and students alike work hard towards their goals, though the pressure seems to be taking its toll on some, like Ura. Haenyul worries about the lack of feedback she's received from Yi-boon about her questions, and only grows more anxious when Yeonwoo and Myung-soo tell her that Yi-boon doesn't review other people's work. Haenyul seriously asks what will happen to her future if there's a problem in one of her questions, and Yeonwoo exchanges high-fives with Myung-soo before bursting out in laughter. They assure Haenyul that they were only teasing since Sung-soon will help her review her questions. As if on cue, Sung-soon enters the office and immediately fires off a list of suggestions for Haenyul to improve the readability and flow of her questions. Myung-soo teases them, claiming that Sung-soon is preparing Haenyul to become her successor, but Sung-soon doesn't even look up to tell biology to be quiet. In the third year's department, a teacher comes by looking for some misplaced printouts, so another teacher helps him look through the cabinets. The only information they have is to look for a red piece of paper, so the teacher grabs the first envelope with red he sees. On his way out, he runs into Haenyul, and she greets him cheerily. The third year's Korean teachers meet together for a run-through of the exam, and Teacher Ha tells Haenyul and Yi-boon that his side has to make some revisions. He scolds Hwon for some minor issues with his questions, and Yi-boon quietly tells Haenyul that Teacher Ha is merely nitpicking. His screams can be heard from outside the meeting room, and he even yells at Hwon for coughing too much. A student drops by the office to ask Teacher Ha about her evaluation, but when he goes to look for them, they're gone. The whole third year's department is in an uproar as they search for the missing evaluations, and the commotion even brings the college advisory team down to their office. Knowing the stakes of losing the evaluations, Hwon frantically searches the cabinets to no avail. Sung Soon stops him and tells him to calm down, but she looks fuzzy in Ha-won's eyes as his cold worsens. Suddenly, he collapses to the floor and is taken out of the school for the rest of the day. Since he still has a class left to teach, Hanyul offers to submit his leave of absence as well as sub for his class. Before heading out, Hanyul remembers the teacher she saw in the office and tells the others about it. While subbing for Ha-won's class, Hanyul looks through his cabinet and finds binders full of material for student records. He even wrote specific comments about the students. She notices a board filled with pictures and post-it notes from his homeroom class, and she learns from one of the students that Ha-won updates the records daily. In the hospital, Ha-won muffles his cries in bed when he gets a call from teacher Yoon. She tells him that they found the evaluations so he should rest easy. She explains how Hanyul found them and even subbed for him. Ha-won thanks her for the call and then sits limply on the hospital bed. Ha-won leaves the hospital after resting for a bit and stops by Young-suk's restaurant. Hanyul also happens to be there helping, and the two of them sit at different tables to eat their noodles. Young-suk is surprised that her regular works at the same school as Hanyul, but when she asks if they are friendly, neither can muster up a lie. Young-suk blames it on Hanyul's nasty temper, which earns her a glare, but she goes on to say that Hanyul is resilient and too dumb to be conniving. She even tells Ha-won that Hanyul initially thought she lost the job since there was a rumor about nepotism at their school. She assures Ha-won that it's safe to be friends with Hanyul, and from the side, Hanyul silently pleads at her to stop. After dinner, the two of them walk to the bus stop, and Ha-won shares an analogy with Hanyul, like a line for a bus: people have to stay in life for opportunities in life. She disagrees with his argument, saying that people grab opportunities based on skill and luck. Regardless of their different viewpoints, Ha-won thanks Hanyul for today, and despite her previous decision, Hanyul decides to tell him about the test. The next day, Hanyul and Ha-won bring the issue of teacher Ha's questions to Sung Soon, who then brings up the matter to teacher Moon. Hearing their concerns of favoritism towards the Icarus students, teacher Moon agrees to revisions, and the ready-to-print test is scrapped. Hanyul's team gets scolded for their decision and they have to pull an all-nighter to make more questions, but in the end, they finish. Hanyul yips with joy once the exams are printed, but the college advisory department gives her a lackluster applause. Unbeknownst to Hanyul, her work is yet to be done since they have to count and organize the tests by hand, and unluckily, teacher Ha left early because he was sick. Midterms arrive, and the Korean exam goes off without a hitch. Hanyul's first exam and experience proctoring end uneventfully, and she enjoys a well-deserved days off for Teacher's Day. Though the exam is over, studying continues for the third years as teacher Han supervises the Icarus study hall. Ura goes to Jae Hyun's desk to look through his booklet, and he catches her red-handed. He calls her a thief, which strikes a nerve, and Ura screams at Jae Hyun to apologize while chucking books at him. Teacher Han bursts into the study hall after hearing them yell and breaks up their fight. The two students are brought to the office where teacher Song threatens to write this incident in their student record, and teacher Han complains about Hanyul's management of the club. Hanyul continues lounging on the couch until dad hands Hanyul her cell phone. She missed 10 calls and 2 messages from Yi Boon. There's been a complaint about their exam question. Yi Boon texts Hanyul that it's a serious issue, as well as an original complaint. As Hanyul rushes to the school, she narrates, "The biggest problem lays low all the time like a snake and slithers in through a crack the moment I put my guard down." By the time she arrives, the others are already there discussing the issue. They tell her that it was the Icarus students who lodged the complaint, and though it's a rather ridiculous point of debate, they still have to take it seriously. Consequently, all the Korean teachers have to meet and discuss the problem, and Hanyul watches silently from the back as teachers from every grade gather to fix this one mistake. Hanyul tells the audience this marked the beginning of the famous Korean department banana incident. All Korean language teachers are summoned for a meeting to discuss the midterm question. As they gather, Hanyul narrates that this is the beginning of the banana incident that would be talked about for years to come. Teacher Moon fills Principal Byun in on the situation, which needs to be resolved ASAP because grades have to be submitted soon. As it's the second midterm-related issue they're facing, the principal wonders if something's going on in the Korean department. Yi Boon leads the meeting, introducing the question. The phrase, Sung Soon bought 2 bananas and watermelons, can have multiple interpretations in regards to the number of fruits being referred to. Sung Soon, nonchalantly, why'd they use my name? Heh. The students were to identify 2 different fruit combinations that make sense within this context, for example, 2 bananas plus 2 watermelons, 1 banana plus 1 watermelon. However, points were not rewarded for answering that there are 2 bananas and watermelons. The complaint comes from the argument that bananas and watermelons could be a fruit bowl consisting of both fruits. This baffles the teachers, who think they should laugh it off and not waste time. Teacher Han, who'd popped into the meeting to check on the situation, leaves in bewilderment. It's revealed that the kids approached Ha-won with the issue, prompting a more senior teacher to give him an earful about being a pushover for accepting the complaint. He dismisses it as a small problem and many teachers rise to leave, until Sung Soon speaks up. She reminds them that this concerns the Icarus kids, and there's also the physics department fiasco that recently turned the school upside down. The others begin to realize that they're facing a pretty serious dilemma. Sung soon drives in her final point: if the kids approach their prep schools with the midterm and it's determined that there's an error in the question, can they handle the consequences? Jae Hyun and URA continue to butt heads while carrying out their punishment for fighting. They get put into their place by Teacher Song, who scolds them for acting out on Teacher's Day. Teacher Han shows up then, and can only laugh in exasperation while thinking about the banana incident. The outspoken senior teacher is firmly against marking the answer correct, believing that the students simply forgot the answer and made up a creative excuse. He barks that marking it correct would affect the authority that the school and teachers hold. Another teacher calmly points out that only 3% of the senior class answered with the banana and watermelon combo, so it isn't a rational answer. Sung soon argues that it can't be written off as a wrong answer just because of that. It's not a majority rules type of situation. The senior teacher bellows that they should be strict with grading, lest students complain about future exams. Hanyul hesitantly suggests referencing the study material that was taught in class to see how similar questions were handled before making the decision. Her idea is about to be shut down because she's a rookie, but the objections are silenced by Sung soon backing her up. When URA heads home, she notices a banner congratulating students on early admissions into college. She recalls that earlier that day, upon discovering that 6 Icarus students, including URA, answered incorrectly, Teacher Song took their side and instructed her to notify him if the grading decision doesn't go their way. Now at dinner, Teacher Song explains to Teacher Han that he was only trying to cheer them on in their battle against the teachers. They're the only ones who stand a chance at being accepted into SKY, the top universities in Korea, so he can't stand by and watch them bomb their Korean levels. Their failure to be accepted affects the school as well. Teacher Han figures that the kids could be wrong, but Teacher Song isn't worried. They're smart and would have thought it out carefully before making the complaint. The next day, Hanyul hesitates before entering her classroom. The air's filled with tension as she announces that credit will not be given to the bananas and watermelons answer. Though there are grumbles of disappointment, nobody reacts as poorly to this news as URA does. Jae Hyun watches as she crumples up her test papers in frustration. Hanyul explains that the test question was a variation of one from their textbook. The teachers decided to only accept answers that are in line with what was taught in class. A student brings up the concept of collective nouns, but it was not covered in their lessons and thus deemed irrelevant to their midterms. URA argues that it was explained in their CSAT prep books, so it can't be wrong even if they didn't discuss it in class. It's a sound argument that her peers agree with, but since the decision has already been made, Hanyul has to be firm and shuts down all objections authoritatively. After class, Hanyul lingers outside her classroom looking troubled. Sung soon walks by and shares that based on experience, the kids are usually right if they're fighting this hard for something. That's why it feels wrong to shut them down. Hanyul references some CSAT prep books and finds that collective nouns really are mentioned. When she receives an email from Yi Boon announcing that the grades are going to be submitted, Hanyul calls and tells her they can't be finalized yet. She runs off towards Yi Boon's office, alarming the other advisors. She finds the senior teacher there, who says that collective nouns appearing in the CSAT material isn't a good enough reason to adjust the grades. Having witnessed what had happened, Yeonwoo follows a dejected Hanyul outside and notes that she needed to be more definitive and logical with her approach. Now that grades are finalized, they'll need to admit fault and apologize if they're to make any adjustments. In the office, a teacher from the physics department laments that he's lost credibility in the classroom after the incident and is struggling to teach. The consequences of that one problematic question highlights what Yeonwoo had advised Hanyul of: grade adjustments are a huge deal, so avoid it unless she's certain. URA and a classmate approached Teacher Ha to show that collective nouns appeared in his after-school class textbook. He'd taught the concept to the Icarus kids and stressed that it was important. Hwon overhears this and observes as Teacher Ha loses his composure. Teacher Song updates Hanyul on the fight between her students, warning her to keep an eye on them before the mood of the club is ruined. She searches for URA in the study room, but doesn't find her. However, evidence of how much effort URA put into her studies can be seen all over her desk. Some Icarus kids discuss the banana question and figure that there must be a problem with it if even URA answered incorrectly. All students who answered using the collective noun concept study extremely hard. As Hanyul processes this information, she learns that URA was just in the office asking about med school. Exam marks are extremely important for college admissions. The banana question drops her down a level in Korean, which will hinder her chances. It pains Hanyul to realize the effect this will have on the students. Hwon comes looking for Hanyul, handing her one of Teacher Ha's textbooks. It's evident that the Icarus kids answered the way they did after noting down the importance of collective nouns in his class. Though Hwon agrees with preparing well for another meeting, he asks that they don't expose Teacher Ha and put him in a bad position. He's such a good guy. Hanyul asks Sung Soon about holding another Korean department meeting. With the principal coming closer, Sung Soon changes the subject, making up a lie about Myung-soo which spirals out of hand. "You had a blind date with a married woman, ha ha." Suddenly, Hanyul's students flood into the office and all the teachers smile as the class breaks into a Teacher's Day song for Hanyul. They shower her with love, roses, and letters before moving on to Sung-soon. They sing her the same song, but change the lyrics to expose her for yelling at them to wake up before she kills them. Ura leaves Hanyul with a board filled with messages from the club. Hanyul's heart is full from all the love she's receiving, until one of the notes gives her pause. Teacher Go Hanyul shines brighter than our futures. She runs out to chase after Ura, but she's long gone. Yeonwoo and Hanyul chat outside, where he shares a little insight on Ura as her former homeroom teacher. She's tenacious due to lack of support from her family, and doesn't have many friends. Even Yeonwoo thinks the Icarus kids must be right this time, considering that Ura was one of the students who answered it that way. He's surprised to learn that the other teacher who wants to request the meeting is Hwon. After school, the trio head to a restaurant where Yeonwoo's broadcasting producer introduces them to the author of their textbook. With a few drinks in their systems, Yeonwoo is called out for teaching boring classes and for being the least popular lecturer on EBC. Hanyul and Hwon are irritated to see their colleague being treated this way, but Yeonwoo stops them from leaving, gathering his pride to ask the author to review their midterm question. When they head home, Yeonwoo drunkenly belts out an unknown tune and Hwon has to drag him to a washroom to prevent him from throwing up in public. Finally alone, Hanyul mulls over the author's opinion that their question was too vague and conditions that excluded the bananas and watermelon combination should have been set. He'd concluded that it's the teacher's mistake and credit should be given for the answer. Hanyul spots an EBC ad that prompts her to write a 5-star review for Yeonwoo on their website. Your class is the best. You always look so neat. She takes back that last part when she spots Yeonwoo as a drunken mess. With another meeting set, Teacher Ha worries that his after-school lesson on collective nouns will be discovered. He overhears Hwon talking on the phone in detail about the materials he prepared for the meeting. Teacher Ha finds the senior teacher, who's already unhappy about the meeting, and purposely fuels the fire by revealing that an outsider reviewed their test question. He then targets Hwon and warns that a grade adjustment will put everything on the line, the department's pride and the teacher's authority. The senior teacher storms into the meeting angrily, guaranteeing that a grade adjustment will result in complaints. He lists the consequences and calls them ignorant for disrespecting their fellow teachers by showing the question to an outsider. Teacher Ha announces that Hwon can't make it to the meeting and Hanyul's calls can't get through to him. Just when it seems like all hope is lost, Hwon shows up with Principal Byun in tow. Yay! As a Korean major, the principal has decided to join the meeting and Yi Boon presents the materials that Hwon prepared. A call to the exam supervisory department reveals that the teachers ultimately decided to adjust the grades. Unable to accept outcome, Teacher Ha refuses to explain the circumstances to the students. The way he acts just baffles me, especially since this was his fault. Hanyul reflects on the events that transpired, narrating that she didn't realize that teachers could be wrong until she became one. However, the simple admission that you were right, I was wrong, is so hard to say. She hesitates to enter her classroom once again, and Yeonwoo says that she shouldn't feel humiliated. What's truly humiliating is to ignore it and do nothing when you know you were wrong. However, that's not why she's hesitating, she's scared to face them. Yeonwoo watches fondly as she bows in front of the class with a sincere apology. Her students tell her that it's okay, and start joking around to make her laugh. Even Ura finally cracks a smile. Teacher Ha submits a proposal to the principal and is told to be careful so that they're not accused of favoring the Icarus kids. Principal Byun had overheard students complaining that the banana question was taught in the after-school class. During lunch is when Myung-soo shares that they've dubbed this the banana incident. Apparently, the senior Korean teacher, named Teacher Park, sent a mass email recounting the situation and ensuring that everyone knows that he's against marking the answer correct. Hanyul voices over that it's difficult to communicate with people who have such stubborn convictions. Ura is very happy since she's now at a level 1 in Korean. Her happiness is short-lived though, because her mom is too busy to attend any of the college admissions events at school. Ura breaks down, frustrated by how different her and Jae-hyun's circumstances are. Principal Byun worries about the upcoming college admission informational session, but is placated to hear that Sung-soon has a plan. He joyfully compliments her for being dependable in front of everyone, which is how Hanyul learns that they've invited an admissions officer from Hankook University for a special lecture at their info session. During their department meeting later, Sung-soon reveals that it's Professor Jang, who felt bad that he didn't meet with them last time. The other advisors deflate to hear the name, recalling some less than pleasant memories. Sung-soon insists that he'll be here this time. He's even flying from Jeju specifically for their informational and has already reviewed their students' files. Hanyul runs back and forth between her two departments for the next few days, as they each work on planning their respective events. On one rainy night, Sung-soon receives a call from Professor Jang. It's bad news. Due to a typhoon, planes are grounded for the next few days and Professor Jang is unable to fly back for the informational. All the advisors are disheartened by this news until Sung-soon learns that Professor Jang has a backup planned. Oh, I have a bad feeling about this. Relieved, Sung soon takes down the backup's number and gives them a call. They don't pick up, so she plans to send a text through Kakao Talk first. The thing with Kakao Talk is that you can see the person's profile picture once you have their number. The entire team is speechless when they see who it is. A woman arrives at the school just then, and sure enough, it's the admissions officer that gave them a difficult time before. Do subscribe my channel for more videos.